10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, all our boggies out there. Welcome to episode 27 of Your Brain on God. In this episode, we are talking about the arbitrary nature of words. And the importance of looking beyond the words to the heart of the person behind them. Mm-hmm. So listen up. It's going to be a good one. Enjoy.
Make sure to have fun. Well, hello, all of our boggies out there. It is Friday, 11:52 a.m. I don't know what time it is. I'm just saying that.
Was close.
Was it close?
Yeah. It's 11:53.
It's 11:53.
Whoa.
Whoa. Sir, I perceive you are a prophet. I think it turned 11:53 once you looked. It was 11:52.
When you said it, it probably was 11:52.
That's crazy. That's crazy. You might not be listening to it at this time, but I just want to let you know that when we're recording this, it's 11:53 now, Friday morning, and we're so excited to be with you on episode 27 of Your Brain on God. 27.
Episode 27.
That's crazy, actually. We're almost at 30.
I remember when I felt 27.
I am. This is the episode of my age.
You are 27.
Jeez.
Dang.
This is crazy, man. This is monumental. Why didn't you get me balloons?
I'm sorry. I was going to say happy 27.
Yeah. Why didn't you give me balloons, Darryl? This is terrible.
Next time.
Oh, man.
Next time. Oh, this is never going to happen again.
Do you think there's any podcasters that just record like once a year, like their 28th episode in 2028? You know what I mean?
Oh, I don't know.
And
Someone's
just,
out there.
And then it's just like
that.
a 16-hour episode
that
of everything they learned in that year.
That whole day is just them talking.
Yeah. About what they learned. That'd be pretty incredible, actually. What I learned this last year. And then it's a full extensive 16-hour in 21. They're 21 years old, and then they grow with their podcast.
Wow, the 21 year. This is what they learned.
Exactly.
I have some friends from college. When I was going to college, they would make montages of their years.
Really?
They were videographers, and they at the end of the year they'd make a montage of the different highlights throughout the year. It's kind of cool.
That's actually dope. I appreciate people that are creative like that. I'm not. I don't know. I just can't make videos like that. You know.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah. Or I also don't I never record anything. It's actually
wow.
I don't document my life. I don't know. I don't care to, I guess.
What are memories?
I'm just way more present than pretty much everybody. Just kidding. Anyway, we're excited.
That's the best way to capture a moment.
It is right here. I love what my girlfriend Abby does. She like takes her fingers like this, and then she captures it. Every time she's like having a good time. We never take pictures together, but she always does imaginary pictures.
I wonder how long that's going to last.
Yeah.
Will there ever be a day where you wish we should have taken an actual picture?
Yeah, probably. I think we're starting to get to that point where we want to take more pictures together. It's kind of cute, actually.
That's cute.
Like we played tennis together the other week, and then she was like, take a photo. And then we took like Serena Williams photos.
Yeah. Me and Brittany have been thinking we should take
like
photos
I put Serena
again.
Williams' face on mine.
Okay.
Yeah. Serena Williams photos.
Nice. That inspire you?
That inspired me, yeah.
That's
to
cool.
like get better.
Me and Brittany have talked about taking photos again because we don't take as many photos as we used to.
I know. I think it's like actually a cute thing.
We used to take a lot of photos together. Now it's not as common. We still take them though.
Yeah. I don't know. I think actually, and I think my mom actually knows this, but I think I actually hate photos. I hate photos because of the fact that photos were always taken like growing up, and then we'd have like these like sad family moments, and then we'd take a picture like and so photos,
if you couldn't see, he had a very big open mouth smile with a thumbs up.
Yeah. In the photos, no, I would always just mess around, you know what I mean, in the photos, because photos started to equate to fake.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Photos. So if I say the word photo, you think fake.
I think, well, I would think of Instagram, and then that would make me think of people setting up photos for the purpose of other people seeing them. And so you're not actually like just appreciating what you're actually doing. You're presenting that in a curated way to another person so that they can see it and like it. That I hate. I just got angry just talking about that. I'm not I'm not going to lie to you guys. Yeah.
Do you know what's funny?
What?
Is that actually reminds me of words.
Which is what we're talking about in episode 27.
That you can say, I can say photo and you think Instagram curated fake.
Fake. I know. Isn't that crazy? You could actually say the word photo. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to be talking about words and actually that exact thing today, which I love. I love that we just accidentally got into our topic by talking about how much I hate photos and Instagram. Anyway, we're going to be talking about words and kind of like the arbitrariness. I think that's a word. Arbitrariness?
The arbitrarious. The arbitrarious nature of words.
I want to be a superhero called the Arbitrarious.
The arbitrarious.
You don't know what I am.
Sounds like a... My first thing that comes to mind is a bird, probably because of...
trees? Arbor?
Bird. An arbor? An arborist?
An arborist. The Arbitrarious. And and I'm like you don't even know what I am, but I'm constantly cutting down trees and you don't know why.
Constantly cutting down trees.
I just come to your front yard and I'm cutting down trees.
It's the Arbitrarious.
It's the Arbitrarious.
Your tagline is timber.
It's the Arbitrarious. Oh, it's so good.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, see how we just made up an entire meaning from something, you know what I'm saying? And that is what words are. I just want to let everybody know that, okay?
That's what words are.
But we literally are making, right now, Darryl and I are making sounds with our mouths in certain ways to create words that your mind is instantaneously right now interpreting in some way.
Into meaning.
These are just sounds coming from my mouth, if you really think about it.
If you haven't been mind blown yet, do it now.
We'll give you 5 seconds to be mind blown about that right now. There you go. Are you mind blown?
Sounds. Words are just sounds.
Yeah.
That we attribute meaning to.
It's crazy, guys.
A phrase that I've heard recently, again, is words don't mean things. People mean things.
People mean things. It's like guns don't kill people. I kill people.
People kill people.
People kill people.
Yeah, words are just sounds leaving our mouth and entering someone's ear. They're just sounds.
And if you really break it down, they're just frequencies that we're using our vocal cords to speak at, that it translate into like sound waves that go into like people's mouth at a base level.
Yeah, at a base level. They're very, very simple, arbitrary. They themselves would mean nothing unless we had attributed meaning to them as the listener.
Right.
Words actually don't mean anything except what it means. I mean, I mean something, and I use words to try to convey that meaning.
Right.
And then your brain interprets those sounds to mean something.
Right.
That may or may not actually mean the same thing that I'm trying to mean.
Right. You're saying somebody else could interpret what you're saying differently than you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is like, okay, so you're probably thinking right now, okay, why does this matter? Okay. It matters a lot, guys.
A lot.
It matters a lot.
A whole
Okay.
lot.
Because the words that we actually use, or the meaning that we attribute to words, can actually affect our lives in crazy ways. You can tell just by looking at the social, political, cultural climate that we have right now in America, that words are used in a very divisive way, in a very separating, obviously, way, argumentative way, and then people can be saying the same thing and mean different things, or be saying different things and mean the same thing. Did I just say that right?
Yeah. I don't know if you said it right, but you said it.
Right? All because I did say it. That's good. But we can get in arguments in our own relationships. Words affect our relationships, especially if we're saying the same words but are meaning two different things. It causes division there, and then it actually can shape by the way that we interpret words in our lives. And we're gonna show this and kind of talk about this. It can actually shape the decisions we make and the things that we actually choose to enter into, or even our beliefs in a way, because of the words that we learn. For an example, like one of my students yesterday, we were having a Bible study yesterday, and we were talking about integrity, and she says to me, she says, "I hate the word integrity." And I was like, "You hate the word integrity? Why?" And she was talking about how when she was like growing up in middle school or high school or whatever, like one of their core, it was like, Mesa School Pride or something like that, and the I in Pride stood for integrity. And so for her, integrity actually matched up with school, and it was like this weird mantra thing that wasn't really carried out because it was like this normal school. And she was like, why does this even matter? And then like people were kind of being hypocritical anyway. It's like, we don't really value this integrity because we didn't actually push it into the culture of the school. It was just kind of like, this is what we do, we're integrous. And it's like, really, so it actually became a word that was like said over and over and over again without actually the fruit of seeing what integrity was, that she tied that meaning to her. And then because of that, she hated the word integrity, and it kind of like grossed her out even to hear the word integrity, when in my mind I'm like thinking integrity, I'm like, integrity is awesome. It's important to be
inspiring.
It's inspiring. Yeah, it's important to be integrous. It's actually one of my high values is to be a man of integrity, right? So based off of my experience of that word integrity and her experience, we are experiencing the integrity in a completely different way, right?
Yeah.
And then that's obviously keeping her from, maybe stepping into like embracing that word, or at least it's going to have to said differently about what integrity is in order for her to embrace a lifestyle of what it being integrous would be,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Another example of how words can affect us is a friend of mine when I was in college told me the story of her mom was making a salad in the kitchen. She chopped up all the stuff, the greens, the veggies, and put it inside the big bowl, and then asked her sister, "Hey, can you toss the salad?" And so the sister walks over to the salad bowl, grabs it, walks over to the trash can, and dumps the salad into the trash. Salad tossed.
Salad tossed. I did exactly what you said.
Her mom said, "Can you toss the salad?" and meant one thing. The sister interpreted that differently, but also tossed the salad.
Right.
So did she toss the salad? Yes, she did.
She did. But she didn't toss it in the way that her mom wanted her to toss the salad.
A very different meaning of the word toss.
Meaning. But we have this like a bunch of, I don't know, it's almost like a trend or whatever, like words that you hate or something like that. People always say, but like moist, man. Moist. But people hate the word moist. And I don't know where that actually started, because I think people started saying that they hated the word moist, and because of that, everyone started hating the word.
Trending.
It started, yeah. It was like a trend. It was like a fad. It was like everyone hates the word moist. I'm confused by that, actually.
People just band around things they hate.
That actually is very true.
That's true.
That is very true. But moist, we were looking at words that people are grossed out by. Moist, giblet,
mucus, or phlegm.
Phlegm, which is actually spelled so cool.
It's so weird, interesting.
PHLEGM. Phlegm.
Yeah.
Phlegm sounds French. Anyway, phlegm.
Crust.
Are you grossed out yet? Because I sure am not. Because they're just words, guys.
They're words.
But the meaning or the visuals even that we get through those words affects how we experience those words. Those words, especially obviously words, the purpose of words is to communicate, right? To understand. So they're highly relational tools to be able to talk to somebody and to have, close connection with somebody else, or to have ideas to grow in certain things. Words are super useful, but the meanings that we have behind those things can really affect, our experience of life, you know what I mean? Or experience of people, because they use a certain word that brings up something from our past, or, has kind of like an emotional tie or something like that, or even a phrase, that we used to hear that our dad used to say, or or in our family, or that was like kind of a mantra of our family. Those things can actually gross us out because of certain things. Just like a photo, you know what I mean, would gross me out. A word could be said and then it rubs us the wrong way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not because of the word in itself, because words are just sounds coming from my mouth, reaching your ears, and then you're interpreting them, right? But because of the meaning that we actually attribute to those words.
Yeah. And those meaning, just to further argue the point, the meanings of the words, even as a collective, change.
Right.
Like it's words that used to mean certain things don't mean those things anymore. Now they mean something else.
Right.
Or they have multiple meanings when they didn't have those meanings before.
Right.
And so we can't really get caught up in thinking this word means this thing because words don't mean things.
Right.
People mean things.
People mean things.
And it's, I think it's so important, like Aaron was just saying, in our relationships and being able to address what the actual issues are of things.
Right.
And we use words and sometimes we fail at understanding somebody because we get so caught up in the words that they're using.
Right.
And not actually trying to understand what they're trying to convey.
Right.
It's important the way that we use our words and our ability to not hold on to words so strongly and to actually look to the next level. Like what's the deeper thing that's being communicated?
Right.
Trying to actually understand the person rather than nitpick what they say.
Right. Yeah, and that's super important because in like communication skills, like a common rule, and people argue this, but is that only 7% of the actual words that you use are communicating meaning to another person. Like of the actual words, like other than that, what's the rule? It's 70.
There's the saying is that there's 7% of what you communicate is words, 35% of what you communicate is tone, and 55% is body language.
Body language. So
wait, that didn't even make equal 100, but
yeah. Does it not? 35. Yeah, it does. No, it doesn't.
No,
I don't know. I think we have it wrong.
33.
33. Okay.
Tone.
Okay.
33. So 55% body language, what they say.
Right.
33% tone.
Right.
7% the actual words that we use.
Yeah. Yeah. So your words aren't like the words alone often aren't communicated. That's why texting is so dangerous. And we've all experienced that. You know what I mean? When you send a text and then someone gets the wrong idea through what you're texting, you're like, that was actually something nice that I said, but because of maybe the last encounter that you had with them, you know what I mean? Or because maybe there's a divide in the relationship or something like that, they view as what you're saying is sarcastic. You're like, I didn't mean it sarcastic. I was actually complimenting you, right?
Right.
But because the fact is that the words that you're experiencing, right, you don't have the tone, you don't have the body language behind them, right? You only have the words, right? And so you're going to attach those words to what you interpret those as, or the tone that you immediately see as, and then obviously it's going to affect our relationships like crazy.
Yeah, and there are more meanings than the words that are there often. It's like the meaning that we take from what somebody sends in a text or an email. If it's like just a factual thing, maybe not. But if there's any kind of emotional context to it, any at all, there's so much room for interpretation.
So much room
For interpretation. For us to take something, read something, and make it mean something that maybe wasn't intended.
Right.
Or to miss the meaning, or to, I don't know, make it less and seem like less of importance than maybe it was, or more important than maybe it was. It's just there's so much ambiguity.
Yeah.
So much ambiguity.
And oftentimes it's what we're drawn to, right? Is words. Like especially I like look at our our kind of climate right now, especially on like social media, and then you have like political stuff going on, right? We often don't want to go beyond words because it's harder to go beyond words and actually seek to understand another individual or another idea. And so we're often led astray by certain headlines and titles and words that mean certain things based on different cultural things or societal things or political things, right? And they grab our attention and then immediately kind of feed us information or create meaning about something or create an emotional response out of something because of the words that are used, right? So we really need to be careful, right, in how we're operating with words, obviously, because they aren't powerful in themselves, but someone can interpret our words as differently, and that's what creates the power in them, right? The power that we give them or that other person is giving them. And then we need to be careful what we're actually allowing our eyes to be drawn to as far as words are concerned in our media, right? In the way that other people are speaking to us, in the way that world at large. For centuries, like, people have been using like propaganda and stuff like that, like words to elicit meaning, to create an emotional response to get you to believe something. It's like, holy moly. And I'm not talking about a specific side right here. I'm not, on anything. I'm talking, we've been using this forever, right? We've been using this a long time, because the way that we use words can manipulate, or can bring somebody into a belief. So we need to be careful about the words and actually seek to understand beyond the words in all aspects of our lives, to see beyond the words that our partner is telling us, that our friends are telling us, to seek to understand that person, that intimate relationship, and then also to seek to understand ideas or political topics, cultural criticism, or societal things. Oftentimes, if we hear something, this is actually crazy. If I hear something and it sounds good, I'm more likely to believe it.
Right. If it sounds good or something that you want to believe, you're more likely to believe it.
Yeah, which is dangerous. Especially if I already am leaning towards that way. Right. And then someone says something elegantly in the same leaning that I'm already there, and then it could be totally false, but I'm like, that does sound true, right?
Right.
So we need to be really careful about how we actually approach words, how we actually use our words, how we actually hear our words, how we actually accept certain words that are given to us to convey ideas and convey meaning, so that we aren't a slave to them, right? And obviously, I think they can be used for good, but they also can be used, poorly. Yeah,
there's the very fact that words will only mean what. Words will only mean something based on how they are interpreted by the person listening, right? Like I can't say a word and make it my exact meaning of it come across except through my use of words in trying to communicate, right? And then that gets interpreted a certain way.
Right.
And so whenever we come into a conversation thinking that we know exactly what somebody means, that's so dangerous to and a likelihood of misunderstanding someone, because if we are going to assume that everything they say means exactly what we mean when we say those things, that is probably going to lead to misunderstanding.
Right. If we think that words are concrete.
If we think words are concrete and are not malleable, are not flexible, or not ambiguous, if we think words are concrete, then we think everything in this word, it's like, I like to think of words like packages, and you just have you have stuff inside the package. And you have a word, and that is a package that's carrying things that I put inside. I'm giving that package to you, but you're going to open that up, and it's going to be something different.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's like
a magical package.
I point out a package to you that I have. I labeled it politics, and everything is inside that box. For me, that means when I say politics, I think about these things. You're going to pull out your politics box, and it's going to have different things. It'll have a lot of the same things probably, but it'll also have different things.
Right.
And I can't think that because I said politics, I'm giving you my box and you're only going to have the stuff that's in my box.
Right.
It's like, that's not the way that communication works, unfortunately.
Right.
Although that is the goal, it's just not the way it works.
Right.
And so if we think that people have everything that's inside our box is the same thing that they have in their box, we're probably going to misunderstand people. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to recognize that it's going to be different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you really have to, you really have to seek to understand, which is more difficult than just taking things at face value, or just then having your box and thinking that everything's going to be the same based on what people are telling you. Because if somebody says something to me, and then I interpret it a different way, I can interpret that way, and I could get hurt by somebody, and then hold on to that belief when they could have been using those words in a completely different way. Right. Mm-hmm. So actually getting locked into specific words or how people use words. This is like a classic like trope of relationships is like, is people arguing, using the same words seemingly, but meaning completely different things and on completely different planes. Right. Mm-hmm. And but in order to have healthy relationships and step into health, we can't view our definitions of words or the meaning that we attribute to the words that we use as concrete and fact. We just can't do that, because my fact about what a word means,
Right.
might have a different interpretation. And obviously we have things called dictionaries that give us base meanings of words, right?
Right.
But
the
probably
the commonly agreed upon meaning of this word.
exactly the commonly agreed upon. Yeah. So we have definitions. So in that way, but
those even change.
But yeah, one, those change, and then probably even more of a definition is how someone actually interprets even those words that give the definition of the word,
exactly.
right? So you have this like endless loop of like these words are continually breaking down. So if that didn't prove the point that
words
we can't,
are ambiguous.
words are ambiguous and they're arbitrary. They're arbitrary, right? They've been given meaning by us, right? And so we have to be careful about how we're actually interpreting those words and how we're using those words and how we're hearing things, for the sake of our relationships.
For the sake of our relationships, to actually connect and understand someone else, we have to not think that words are concrete.
Right. And again, it's hard work.
It's hard work, and it could be scary kind of as well.
Right.
And then it's like anything, it's like losing grounding, it's like, well, what's going to ground us? That's just the way that we communicate. It's like there's concept inside of me that I'm going to try to get inside of you. And I'm going to do whatever I can to communicate that. Maybe it's going to work. Maybe it's not going to work. But that's what we got. And at the end of the day, we are social beings. We're trying to connect with each other, and we use what's available to us to connect and to communicate. I think part of the beauty of the differences is that it actually helps us expand our thinking too. Because if everything only meant one thing, how locked in and closed-minded would we become if there wasn't different ways of interpreting things? I think it's kind of beautiful that we can take an approach to understand somebody deeper, on a deeper level, by asking the question of, well, what do you mean by that? Or what do you mean when you say this? Like you said this thing, what did you mean by that?
Right.
And that's an opportunity for us to grow. And I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But words, they impact our decisions, right? The way that we understand words, and Aaron and I were having a conversation about a couple of different things, but the way that we understand something, the way that we take a concept or we hear something, we hear a phrase, and it means something for us, we can so often and so easily pack that with understandings, different understandings, and to mean different things. And then now I've got this box, this word or this phrase, and it's this box that I have now packed all these things inside of. And sometimes we take that box and we push it off to the side and think, I don't want to have anything to do with that box.
Right.
And like the word integrity.
Right.
If I take the word integrity and I pack these experiences that I've had with it,
negative experiences,
negative
fake
experiences, it means to be fake. It's just a mantra. It's not real. And that's what I think of when I think of integrity. I'm probably going to push that away and not think about that word.
Right.
And maybe not want to have anything to do with things that have to do with that word either.
Right.
But what happens sometimes is, like, I was just gave this example with Aaron earlier, but if I'm like packing up my house, I moved a lot when I was little. We moved a bunch of times, I think like 12 times by the time I was in high school. And we always pack up the house and you label the boxes, right? Because you want to know where to put things. You want to know what's inside of which box, where do we put it, and how, when do we unpack it and all that. Which ones are we going to leave in the closet and never touch?
Right.
But what'll happen is if you put something inside of the wrong box, maybe something that doesn't fit with those things, and then you put it away, then you're not going to have that thing available to you because it's packed away in some box somewhere. And if I put it in a box, if I have a teddy bear that I put in with my pots and pans, something's going to be in there that shouldn't really be in there, right? And just because the teddy bear was around the pots and pans, I kind of grabbed all the stuff that was there and I put it in the box.
Right.
And we can have an experience and take that whole experience, everything that came along with that experience, put it inside the same box.
Same word box.
The same word, yeah. and we make that word mean all these things,
Right.
and we push everything that has to do with that. We put it to the side.
Yeah. So
And-
integrity no longer means living according to values. You know what I mean?
Right.
It means inauthentic.
Now
or,
it's been
or it means shame.
all these other experiences that
Right.
happened at the same time, got put inside that box, inside that word integrity, and now
Right.
integrity means something different.
Right. And because of what was put in that box, maybe the things that we put in there were too heavy, and so we did put that box away.
Right. You're like, I don't even want to think
don't-
about those things. Don't want to deal with those things. But there could be good things in there
Right. Exactly.
that we're missing out on and we're avoiding.
Right. Well, we put it out. Yeah. A huge conversation that I was having with Abby recently was about purity culture, and she was having a conversation with some girls in her college, and they were talking about purity culture. And then if you don't know what like purity culture is, what I've seen that it's become, purity culture is kind of like the shame and blame that both males and females feel from maybe religion or from the church around sexuality, around, not having sex before you're married. It's a big thing in Christianity is, kind of, valuing the, waiting for sex before you get married, to have that covenant of marriage before you enter into that. But that's caused a lot of shame for people who have messed up, or who have had sex before marriage or whatever, and then the shame and blame probably that they've actually experienced, from religion or from certain churches that have brought them down or condemned them for doing that, right? And so you have this like idea of purity culture. It's like it's a word that means two words, a phrase or whatever that right now, especially, it seems like means a specific thing. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, like this prudish, condemnatory like shame,
condemning.
condemning. Oh, that's it. Yeah. Condemning, shameful way of treating people who don't like adhere to like the rules of some religion, and we're like talking about it, and I was thinking, well, like I am a believer, and I do believe I'm called to be have a culture of purity. You know what I mean? Like I want to like seek purity in my life. If you actually take what purity means to me, like, you know what I mean? Like I want to live purely, and I want to be in a culture, you know what I mean, that we value purity, and we value living holy and being clean and all of that different kind of stuff, but the words have taken a whole different take, you know what I mean?
Right.
Where it's like this purity culture is like this evil, like religious thing that is this oppressor on women, on men, you know what I mean, to keep us from doing, whatever, you know what I mean, to keeping us to live our lives, from making us feel shameful and little and terrible and all this stuff. And so you have these two words, this purity culture or whatever, that almost, what I've had conversations with people, they scoff at it, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this dang purity culture. But then in my mind, I'm like, well, don't we want to have a culture of purity? You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, are we believers? Like, I'm like, 1 John literally, says in the Bible, like, be pure, like keep yourselves pure just as he is pure, my dear children, so I'm like, that sounds like a culture of purity to me, right? So it's not the words purity culture, because those things mean completely different things to me, right? But it's the meaning behind those things that has created like this almost subset of brokenness, you know what I mean? Or actually like a culture against purity culture, you know what I mean? Which really seems to be founded in like brokenness, shame, blame, or condemnation from the church by another person. But then you become against this like this ideology or this phrase, these words, when really, if you actually look at the words at face value without that kind of like brokenness or that thing, it's just having a culture of purity, which is valuable to me,
Yeah.
So it's like, it's interesting that we can step into this place, and then even like purity, or like going back to the integrity things, like things that I would say are good things to step into. Purity and integrity are amazing, are actually things that they don't just mean like being clean, or like, and then having like being in an environment, a community of people who are going after holiness or purity, right, anymore. They mean condemnation. They mean blame, they mean shame, they mean religion. And so again, you going back to the box analogy, you have purity culture, then you have all these things in the box that gets way too heavy. And so you toss out the baby with the bathwater,
right?
You know what I mean? And then oftentimes those ideologies of those words make us rebel like completely against those things is what I've seen. You know what I mean? It's like if it's so hard to be living up to this purity culture, this evil purity culture, I'm just going to do whatever I want. You know what I mean? And then people end up like getting into even more brokenness because of the way that they were viewing a certain set of words that they had attributed certain meaning to them. And that actually breaks my heart. Like it actually breaks my heart because in my mind, I'm like, I know God is good and he's actually called us to purity, you know what I mean? And he's called us to freedom and he probably knows better than I know, you know? And he's not a God of shame or blame or condemnation, but we've created these words, you know what I mean? Or this phrase around the brokenness rather than around the truth of maybe what those words actually mean, you know, or what they can mean.
Yeah, it's like taking that phrase purity culture, and it means whenever I first heard that when Aaron was talking to me about purity culture, I didn't think any of those things, like the negative things, right? I thought, oh, that sounds like something, you know, I would expect to hear at a church about being pure, you know.
Right.
And I actually thought when he was first talking about it, I thought he was talking about it in a positive light. And then I came to realize, oh, he's like all these negative things that are tied in with that phrase purity culture, like the shame, obligation and condemnation, judgment, being looked down upon.
Right.
And whenever the people who have that understanding of that phrase, that purity culture means those things, those aren't the only things that are tied in with that, right? I mean, the concept of purity is tied in with that.
Right.
The church, the idea of the church is tied in with that because that's probably where they got that experience of being shamed and being looked down upon and judged. The way that God sees them is probably tied up in that meaning too. And so if all those things are tied up in that one word or that one phrase, purity culture, they're probably gonna avoid those things, right? They don't want to have shame. They don't want to be judged. Nobody wants to have those things. And so if I think that what comes along with those things are the church, are a relationship with God, because that's the way he looks at me, I'm going to probably avoid those things. And that's actually become a driving factor in my life.
Right.
That I now live my life according to the way that I see that phrase purity culture because of how deeply I was impacted by that.
Right.
I had an experience, and the way that I capture that experience is purity culture. And I want to avoid that.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to live differently.
Right.
And
so it affects your decisions.
It affects our decisions,
how you actually
and the way
can
that
live.
we live.
Mm-hmm.
And that what needs to happen, well, I don't know if I should even say that, but something that can happen, I think, is going back to that phrase, like we're opening up a box and thinking, well, what really belongs in here?
Right.
How do I take the things out that maybe aren't actually connected to this?
Right.
What are the things that just ended up getting pulled in with the experience and put into this box?
Right.
Maybe I need to unpack that, and maybe shame, maybe judgment isn't specifically tied to purity culture.
Right.
Maybe there are other things that are in there that I've just kind of put inside and you know made them mean the same thing and tied them together in one lump. But maybe it could be different.
Right.
Maybe that's not the way it needs to be.
Right. Yeah.
And being able to separate some of the meanings that we put into words, I think can help with better communication. One,
totally.
You know, it's like people who use the same word to describe everything.
Right.
It's like we talked about that in another episode, but being able to use specific words to describe things kind of actually helps our own experience of those things when we're able to vocalize and to express ourselves more specifically and having more literacy, you know, having a more variety, a better
vernacular
variety in our words, in our vernacular. Yeah. But there is healing that comes from that. I think when we think, what are those things I've tied together that maybe don't need to be tied together, that don't need to be associated with? Yeah. I think there's healing that comes from that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Huge healing. I think, you know, another one would be just like sin, you know, in general. I mean, that's like a big thing that's been pushed, pushed by the church, you know? And I mean, the Bible talks about sin, you know, a lot of that stuff, but when you hear sin, you don't really hear sin, you know what I mean? Or a lot of people probably don't just hear sin, you know, you hear, hellfire and brimstone preachers, talking about sin. You think about hell, or you think about, again, condemnation, or God, God striking you down or something like that. Sodom and Gomorrah, you hear like the shame that you have around, I don't know, any sin that you're in, you know what I mean? And then we see that, and it immediately causes a brokenness in us. And then we don't actually see sin as just I guess the definition, meaning, missing the mark.
Right.
It's just missing the mark. But sin, we don't really see it that simply, because of all of the stuff that is in the same box with sin, and then it, again, I'll say, like, it kind of, it's really important that we get this, because if, say, especially in our relationship with God too, it's super important, because if God's like, hey, like, come out of sin, you know what I mean? It's like, we're not hearing it as like, hey, like, graciously, come out of your sin. Like, you've missed it, but like, I'm going to make up for it. We're hearing like, come out of you shameful, you terrible, we hear religion, we hear blame, we hear condemnation, we hear all this stuff surrounding sin, like not allowing us to be where we're at, whatever it is, not being enough for God, or, and then we hear that, and then we can get called out, or someone can even point something out in us and say like, hey, I think you're sinning in this area, and then immediately like blow up because of all the things that word is tied to,
right?
And then I know that that weight gets so heavy. Sometimes I've been so heavy and feeling so much shame or condemnation for my sin that it makes me want to do the exact opposite, and just go like, I'm just going to do whatever I want, right? I'm going to go sin. It actually pushes me away from something good, because of the word associations that I've made with that certain word, with being integrous, or with purity, living in a purity culture, or with, staying away from sin or whatever. Those ties can actually lead and change those decisions that I'm making to actually be free from something that's damaging to me. Because if I actually look at just like sin in my life in general, or like, let's just call it mistakes. If I say mistakes, you probably already feel like, okay, mistakes, I can take that word.
Right.
It's like everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has those days. Hannah Montana, you know what I'm saying? But everyone makes mistakes. But then you say mistake, it's like the same thing really as sin. It's like, but then it's like, whoa, there's like a frustration with that word. It's like, well, why? You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. They mean a pretty similar thing. I would say, but yeah, you can get caught up in that, and then keep yourself from something good, or something that God has for you, or like something powerful and healing in a relationship, because of those mindsets,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy how much our understanding of certain words, and maybe it's that we understand, we have a certain experience, or we understand something, and we use a word to capture it.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that we capture it impacts our decisions.
Yeah.
And it really does change the way that we behave, the way that we respond to things when we hear certain words. People say certain, like trigger words.
Right.
I don't know that I have any trigger words, but I've heard it's like,
I heard it's a thing though.
I heard it's a thing. Well, somebody hears a word and then they're triggered. And yeah. I get it I definitely get it on, I'm not talking about on like the emotional trauma side of things. Right. That makes sense. I understand that. Right. I mean, like people, I don't know, people hear a word and then they just get irritated for some reason, or they just get weirded out. I don't know. But there are words that actually impact our experience of life.
Right.
And impact the things that we think we can or cannot do, or impact the way that we relate to someone or don't relate to somebody, whether or not we think that person is somebody we need to tear down or not, and just the words that we choose to use are important for shaping our own experience, right, as well as shaping the experience of others. And when we realize that not everybody has the same meanings of things, when we can use words in a way that are maybe harmful to somebody else, it's good to know. Yeah. Because then we can try to understand that person more, maybe understand why this word is so impactful, and if it's something we should avoid or not. And it helps build our relationships. Right. If we are intentional about the words we use and are mindful that maybe they don't mean the same thing for everyone. Right. Yeah. And being aware of the experience that we create. When we look up, I don't know, I'm just thinking about videos on YouTube, like so and so destroys so and so.
Right.
Aaron was saying earlier. It's like, why are we wanting to destroy people anyways?
Yeah. There's like those political videos of like, right-wing conservative decimates like leftist communists. I'm like, why are we you know what I mean? But those things like draw us in because of the words, and then we like watch these debates where they're just destroying each other with their words, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're like celebrating that, it's like, and I notice it, I mean, Facebook the algorithm gives me all these political videos, because I will watch them from time to time, and then I can even find myself like, yeah, they need that, they deserve that, you know what I mean? It's crazy. But then you realize if you look behind the words and it's like destroys, like that's a pretty crazy word, you know what I'm saying? Like at least in my own vernacular, like, why are you trying to destroy another person with a different belief than you in the first place? Like,
wait a second.
And why are we celebrating this political figure decimating somebody else's self-esteem who's like a college kid who like
I know
oh, and we're
man,
like,
so
sad. It's like, well, let's take a look and like step back and be like, what are we actually going at? These things are creating crazy division,
Yeah, crazy division.
Words division
create worlds.
Words create worlds. That's true. Yeah. So I think the encouragement, after all of that, again, I think Darryl, you touched on pretty much everything, but yeah, just to know the impact of our words on other people, and then to be able to actually seek to understand rather than just look at the words that somebody else is saying, and then to be able to question the words that we see on social media, on the internet, you know what I mean? On those like clickbait things, and then to actually question, like, is this actually, like, are they actually getting to the point here? Are these words actually conveying, something that is life-giving? And then to not keep ourselves, to be aware, I think, of the ways that we've tied certain things to certain words, maybe it could be a silly thing like moist, you know what I mean? And then to actually question, like, why do I hate that word? It's just a word. It's a sound, but maybe it's something more serious where it is like integrity or sin or church, like, you know what I mean? Like there's certain emotional responses we have, God or Jesus, I think especially those words Jesus is like a trigger word, you start talking about Jesus and people are like, don't bring Jesus up in this conversation, it can be, right? Like they can be like, I mean, Jesus says he's going to be a stumbling block, but they can be stumbling blocks because of what we attribute to that word or to that person, and then to be aware of those things and to question why our emotional response is so heightened maybe to those things in those like trigger situations,
Yeah, I think that is important. If we haven't done that work to actually dive into, well, why am I so bothered by this?
Right.
What am I making this mean whenever someone says this?
Right.
And why does that bother me?
Yeah. It's important.
And doing the inner work, takes intentionality.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think you said it, Aaron. Deeper understanding. I think that's at the heart of it. It's that so that we can understand each other. Right. I think that's the purpose of communication. That's the reason we have developed language and words and sounds and why we do things, why we have emojis on our text message now. Yeah. Is to better convey to be understood and also to seek to understand, to try to understand the other person, not being caught up on the words, but actually understanding someone else's heart.
Right.
And what's going on behind it.
Yeah. And that's ultimately love, that's ultimately loving to do, is to not just see things as surface value, you know what I mean? Or what someone's saying, but to actually look at the heart, and to actually get to the heart. And it's going to take a lot more time than just taking words at face value. And, oh my gosh, I got to sneeze.
Bless you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a lot easier to take people's words at face value. We like that. We like short little bits. Yeah. And you see that all over the place, people taking short things that people say, and then
this person said
this person said this, and we're like, why are you crazy? Are you serious? Totally out of context, about what somebody else said. So we just have to, we have to be careful and actually seek to understand and do the hard work of actually loving on a person and looking deeper so that we can love better.
Yeah.
Looking deeper so we can love better.
Look deeper to love better.
Words create worlds.
There are a war with words.
Beyond Words with Aaron and Darryl.
Beyond words. Last fun fact of words. The word goodbye came from the Old English shorthand, God be with ye.
So God be with ye,
So
all of our
God be
boggies.
with ye, boggies. God be with ye.
God be with ye. You guys are incredible. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Spotify, iTunes podcast, YouTube, all of the good stuff, TikTok. We love getting this content out to you guys. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. And hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure to like, share with your friends, talk about it, message us. Yeah, we would love to talk about some of these things with you guys. All right. See you later.
Peace.